In this video, I'm going to unlock 3 simple steps to master golden hour photography. These steps are quick and easy, which help me shoot a portrait session with my daughter in just 15 minutes. So stay tuned. Hey there, and welcome to another video. I am Anshu and I have been a photographer for over 15 years now. On this channel, I talk about how to simplify taking photos. I also started my video journey this very year, so I will be talking a bit about that plus some of my other interests. Today I'm going to take you on a golden hour photography session which I recently did with my daughter when I was in Goa. I had just 15 minutes to wrap up this session. So the steps which I'm going to talk about today really helped me in achieving some amazing snaps in just 15 minutes. Usually during this kind of a photography, you have multiple choices in terms of how you're going to take the picture. It can either be backlit or you can have the sun position from the side. My favorite style is always to use sun as a backlight, and I will show you exactly how you can take photos with this. In the end, I'm also going to talk about a step which will actually help you simplify the whole workflow when you are post-processing these photos. So stay tuned till the end. If you find this video helpful, then do consider subscribing to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. So what is golden hour? Golden hour is that soft, warm sunlight which you see usually 1 hour before the setting sun and 1 hour after sunrise. So this kind of a light actually is very good for portrait photos, and it will give you a very warm cinematic kind of look for your portrait photos. So step number 1 is to plan your golden hour. Usually this time, that is 1 hour before the setting sun and 1 hour after sunrise, it is little tricky to calculate this hour because some of the time it may be cloudy and you may not have the right kind of a light to really go out and do the portrait session. So what I do is, like, I always use the weather app to see how that weather is going to be. Will I get a clear sunset for that particular day? And I try to plan at least to be at the location 1 hour prior. So for example, at this location where I was staying, the sun was going to set around 6:15 p.m. So I try to be at the location around 5:10, and then you will have around 1 hour of time to click your photos. But this is another story that particular day I just had 15 minutes. My daughter started feeling a little uneasy, and then we had to just wrap up everything and go back around 5:25, 5:30. By planning, I also mean you should also go ahead and choose your location. So if you want these kind of images which has a very nice dreamy background with a lot of bokeh, then I would suggest try to go to an open field where you have some trees in the background, and then you can position your subject between the trees and behind that the light. So the sunlight coming through the leaves gives a very nice dreamy bokeh kind of a effect to the photos. So step 2 is knowing your camera setting. This is very critical, especially if you're pressed on time, like how I had only 15 minutes to wrap up this complete session. You definitely need to know your camera settings. So I will break down the complete camera setting in these different categories. I prefer shooting in manual mode. You can go ahead and shoot in auto mode, but if actually you switch to a manual mode, you have more control over the kind of exposure, the aperture which the camera is going to choose. So usually when I am doing a shoot like this and I had very little time, I will try to keep the aperture fixed, that is say from 1.2 to maybe even 1.8, and then I do a trial and error for the shutter speed. So I will go ahead and maybe do some adjustments for the shutter speed and see what works for that particular scenario. So for this particular setting, I'm going to talk about raw file format. I know you might have heard this a lot from other photographers, but this does live the hype. So try to shoot in raw file format, and I will tell you exactly in the next step how you can benefit from that. So next, let's move to my computer where I will show you how I did these corrections using a sample image, and I use a native camera app. I don't use any fancy applications to do my post-production of the photos. Okay, so now I'm back at my laptop and I wanted to exactly show you how I do basic processing of my photos, which I have talked earlier in this video. So I'm using NX Studio, which is the native camera app for Nikon, and all brands have their own native app. So this is definitely always the first choice if you want to process some raw photos. Now as you can see, all these images I have clipped in NEF format, which is the raw file format for Nikon. So first up, I wanted to show you about how I recover the shadows and highlights on this particular type of photography. Now as you can see, this photo is strongly backlit, and because of that my daughter's face is actually dark and it is in shadow. So I didn't use any fancy lighting equipment to reflect back the light on her face. So I do rely on post-processing to eliminate that, and it is very simple to recover the shadows on this. So what I do is I go to this shadow protection menu and I just move the slider to my liking, and as you can see, the background colors are still preserved, but her face has actually become more bright and it is like the shadows have got eliminated. So it is very easy, and especially if you're shooting in RAW, it really makes it simple to recover the shadows from the face as well. So you can use this particular application. Now the second thing which I wanted to show you about was the exposure compensation. So as you can see, I have shot this particular photo in RAW file, and because it is shot in RAW, it is very easy to change the exposure up to some degree so that the image quality of the photo is not affected. And obviously if you have shot in RAW, that is how it will happen. And I earlier also mentioned that you should always try to slightly underexpose your photos, like how I have did here, so that the background highlights are still retained. If you can see, the trees, the bokeh around the trees are perfectly retained, and there are not any elements which I would say is kind of blown out of highlight. So if I will adjust the exposure to my liking, if I think it is slightly underexposed, I do go ahead and change the exposure. Even sometimes going up to a value of 1 will really not deteriorate your photo quality. So I think going to 1 will really be too much for this photo. So maybe somewhere around 4 should be okay, and this still preserves the background and shows the trees really well. And the third thing which I wanted to show you was about the white balance. So earlier in my video I said that the white balance is something you should not be bothered at all when you're shooting raw files, because you can easily change your white balance to your liking in post processing. So for example, this photo I feel is slightly on the cooler side. Maybe my preference is always for a warmer photo, so I will go ahead and change it to a slightly warmer color balance and see how it looks. So this looks better for me rather than the previous version. So I can play around with the white balance and change it to my liking. If you want to really go with a cinematic look, more like an orange kind of effect to your photo, you can definitely go ahead and increase your Kelvin scale on that. But I think that is too much for this, so probably somewhere around 6290 should be okay for this photo. And also you can change your tint of the photo. So this photo is little on the greenish side, so I think maybe going a little purple will really enhance this photo. So that's it. So this is all I have done, 3 basic edits to this particular file, and this is what I also post finally my photos as. I don't go for any fancy filters or anything, and I'll just go ahead and export this photo, and that's about it. That's it. These are the 3 simple steps which I follow to click amazing golden hour photos. So hope you enjoyed this video, and now you know that clicking golden hour photos is very simple if you follow these basic steps. And you don't need any fancy equipment, just a camera and a lens is sufficient to get images like this. So do consider subscribing to my channel. I will see you in my next video. Bye. And if you want to know a little bit more about the camera gear which I use, then watch this video somewhere here.